He's the chief creator behind Gollum in the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings films, as well as dinosaurs in Jurassic Park and a 25-foot gorilla in King Kong. His work in digital visual effects has earned him 4 Academy Awards. Welcome, Joe Letteri. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Wendy.
I saw The Hobbit last night. I got a sneak preview. Trolls, stone giants, Gollum, goblins. Your fingerprints are all over this film. Is there one part of it that was the trickiest to execute and that you're most proud of?
I'm still most proud of Gollum, I have to say. He's just my favorite. And it's a combination of things, right? You've got this great character, you know, just inherent in the writing and the story that he's got to tell. You've got a great actor performing him and what Andy Serkis brings to the screen.
We like goblins and bats and fishes, but we haven't tried hobbits before.
And then we've just spent years and years trying to perfect what it means to create a fantasy character and to have that be as realistic as possible.
My name is Bilbo Baggins.
Bagginses. What is Bagginses, precious?
Eyes and skin, how did you achieve that effect?
You know, in like 10 years ago when we were doing this, we were just sort of guessing. We kind of knew what eyes should look like, what skin should look like. We came up with some ideas, and we just worked really hard to massage everything into place. But ever since that experience, we sort of got inspired to really investigate and understand what is it that makes you believe a performance. And a lot of it is just the emotional, you know, connection that you get with the character. But we've also spent a lot of time just studying, you know, the science, the physiology, the biology, what makes things look alive, and how do you replicate that? And so it's like a combination of this scientific inquiry and this artistic, creative endeavor that have all come together to make Gollum.
And you mentioned Andy Serkis, who's the actor who plays Gollum. Now, 10 years ago, he had to act his scenes on a separate stage, and then they were merged with the live actors in post-production. Not so this time around. He got to act live with the other actors. How did that change things, and why were you able to do that?
Well, 10 years ago, when Andy was brought on to do Gollum, he was brought in as just a voice actor, right? When you thought of animated characters in those days, the actor went into a booth, recorded the voice, and then you used keyframe animation to create the character. But Andy, rather than standing off to the side of the stage reading his lines with the other actors, just sort of put on a suit and jumped into the middle of it. And that really charged up the scene and it charged up the performance. And we all looked at it and said, well, that's what we want to see Gollum do in the final, you know, film. So we came up with the idea of motion capture with it. At the time was really kind of a science experiment, but you know, we really pushed on it and proved that it could be used as a filmmaking technique, and that was, you know, really what you saw in Gollum the first time around. And so we've worked these past 10 years, and you know, having gone through a number of films like King Kong and Avatar to really try to, you know, understand more and more about performance capture, to the point where when we got to Lord of the Rings, it was this homecoming. Andy could be on the set with Martin, with Peter directing, and what you see is Gollum.
Now, this goblin scene, I understand that was one of the trickiest for you to execute this time around. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, okay, in the book, you know, the dwarves get captured and taken down into these goblin tunnels. But the way Peter imagined it, it was this vast underground city where these goblins were scavengers. You know, they'd go and raid the people of Middle-earth and come back with, you know, bits of you know, chairs and pottery and, you know, bones and whatever it was, animals. And you had this like vast city, but it was inside out. So you come into the tunnels and it opens up and the city's all around you. And so we just really were able to just populate this thing with thousands and thousands of goblins and torches and these old rickety huts and these bridges. And so the whole movie takes place on multiple levels. It's like we could really take advantage of the stereo. It's almost like a Chutes and Ladders kind of thing, where everything just keeps happening and moving around.
When you're working to achieve scenes like that, are you thinking about longevity, Joe? Are you thinking, is this going to hold up 10 years down the road? Will people look at this and still go, wow, or will this sort of look outdated? Do you think about that?
You know, like 10, 15 years ago, I remember doing films like Jurassic Park for the first time and thinking exactly that. Boy, I hope we can come up with a way that this would hold up in, you know, 10 years or so. But now we're starting to understand the basic principles so much that we know if something looks real, we know that it will look real as if it were shot in front of the camera.
Do you think Jurassic Park still holds up when you look back? What do you think?
I think it does, although now I know what I didn't know then, and I can look at it and say, ah, I get it, but I still wouldn't want to change it.
Let's talk about kids coming up now who want to do what you do. What would you tell them to study? Should they study to be artists? Should they study certain technical skills? What advice would you give?
In an ideal world, it's both. You know, you want to bring a creative you know, bent to it. You want to be able to look at things and understand storytelling and emotion and composition and photography. You also really need to understand a little bit about the science behind what you're creating, you know, the math or the physics or the physiology. What we have to do is create worlds. And so there's like 1,000 people working on this film at Weta Digital. You can have any part of that be something that you want to focus on. So if you like doing costume design, we need virtual costumes. If you like doing hairstyling, we need to do virtual hair. If you're interested in how muscles move, you know, kinematics, you can do that. If you want to figure out how things explode, if you want to look at animation, if you want to look at photography, any aspect of what you see in the real world, we have to create. So it's sort of an all-encompassing studio world that we do. So there's room for everyone.
Let's talk also about the next Hobbit film. So The Desolation of Smaug. What will be the biggest advance there in what you're doing from this first movie, The Unexpected Journey?
Well, I think a lot of that, and we have yet to figure this out yet, will be Smaug himself, because we only glimpse him in the film, but he obviously becomes a featured character given the title of the film. And so what we discover with any character is they always change as you develop them throughout the course of the film.
Joe Letteri, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks.